So welcome to the latest episode of COVID Cast. Today we have a COVID Cast newsmaker special focusing on the people behind the headlines of some of the most significant developments announced during lockdown. And today I'm delighted to say I'd like to welcome Steven Mendel, the CEO and co-founder of Bought by Many, a new business that has just announced a $98 million raise led by FTV Capital. Hello, Steven.
Good afternoon, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm okay. Can I start? I think just about. I think the homeschooling is the most difficult thing at the moment, if I'm honest with you. My daughter's currently upstairs, apparently learning about Brazil, but probably playing with stuff and things.
WhatsApping or on some computer game.
She's not up for WhatsApping yet, but she definitely knows how to play computer games. But yourself?
Yeah, we're good. My kids are a bit older, so my youngest is on games this afternoon, which means playing FIFA against all his classmates.
I have to say, one of the most recurring features of people I'm talking to on these various things is maps. And I see you've got a map behind you as well. Is that planning the
Yes.
world expansion of Bought by Many, which we'll probably come to in a bit?
Certainly, happy to.
Can I first ask, who are FTV Capital and how did you get introduced to them?
Sure. So we actually we have known FTV Capital for some time. In fact, the person who I met originally in Vegas in 2017 actually reminded me of that very recently. In fact, last night. So FTV Capital, a very established New York private equity house, more than venture capital, been around over 20 years. I think they're on Fund 6 now. Originally were very US centric, but over the last few years have been making some significant investments in Europe. They have, I think we are their fourth in the UK now. So they're not kind of virgins in this territory, if you like, but it's not their core skill set. They don't have an office in the UK yet, although they have said that they are thinking hard about that.
And can I just ask, was there any issue or any issues with announcing the deal during lockdown? I've heard in the broker market, it's kind of like all deals are off for the foreseeable future.
So we had two massive advantages in this space. Firstly, term sheets were signed long before anyone had ever heard of COVID-19. So we had got to that stage. And the second is that, really importantly, the Bought by Many continues to perform incredibly well, even during the whole lockdown scenario. And I think that if the business had not been performing so strongly, I think we would have found it much harder than we did find.
And the obvious question then is, what is the money going to allow you to do?
So a few things. So firstly, just get in front of literally hundreds of thousands of more pet parents. And to show them what we can do, further investments in tech. As you may know, we launched into Sweden. Our main launch was last October. We did a kind of beta test a few months earlier, and that's been very successful for us. So it's about further expansion into Sweden, and then thinking further about our geographic footprint, where next, what lessons do we want to take from the Swedish expansion and bring to bear in other countries. And
can I have to ask, you've got the map behind you, where could that possible global expansion include?
So the answer to this question, and actually it's kind of worth touching for 2 seconds on why Sweden in the first place.
Yeah.
So the pet insurance marketplace globally looks very different from most other insurance marketplaces. Actually, Sweden is the most sophisticated pet insurance marketplace in the world. It's where pet insurance was invented in the 1890s. And penetration rates there are 60%, so 60% of pet owners buys pet insurance. In the UK, which is actually the largest marketplace, pet insurance arrived in the end of the 1940s. Penetration rates here are just less than 30%, so half of where Sweden is. And you can track that trajectory. So Sweden was where the UK penetration rates were 10 years ago, so we're expecting the UK to follow in that agenda. So part of the answer to your question about spend is about doing more in the UK. But then if we look at other countries and where penetration rates are, and they're all much, much, much lower, It's about looking at where we think the world will change with a particular pet insurance lens. And obviously that looks very different from what it might look like if you were in the motor or the home or the travel insurance space. So actually other big markets that are where penetration rates are high, Japan and Australia. The US, oddly, has a very, very low pet insurance penetration rates.
And I did see that your new investor, FTV Global Partners, or FTV Capital, they have a global partner network, which I think includes a vast range of institutions from AIG to Aon to Visa to Wells Fargo, yes, and the alphabet. And I think in your announcement, you mentioned this could help as well, perhaps with some of that penetration.
Yeah. And what I should say, and we haven't really touched on this, or you asked about what do we know about FTV, but you haven't asked about why FTV. So it's kind of useful thing to think about, because we were in the very fortuitous position of having term sheets from actually 6 different players, which is, I know, a very enviable position to be in. And we picked FTV partly because of this global partner network, the skill set and the experience they can bring to bear. We have said since outset that, if someone invests in us, they've got to bring us more than just money. They've got to bring us experience and knowledge and access and just skills that we need to be able to build this business. FTV is no different, absolutely no different. And so that core partner network, which you refer to correctly, is an important part of why we selected them.
And in terms of, acquisitions, I know last year you bought a business, was it called Cadidia? Is that how
Cadidia, yes.
Cadidia. And if I'm right, that's your second acquisition after, is it Brooks Braithwaite down in Sussex?
Correct.
Yes. Which was a pet broker. Again,
you're well informed as ever.
Again, is that something you might look at with this investment? Would you look to do more acquisitions, and if so, what would those acquisitions particularly look like?
So firstly, I'm a big believer of don't raise money to do acquisitions. So the acquisitions that we have done, the 2 that you refer to, were all about getting somewhere that was important to us. So it wasn't about the acquisition itself, it was about how can we get somewhere quicker. Yeah. And that's absolutely what happened with Cadidia, for example. So it was actually, they were a web design agency that we'd worked with before. We liked the people, we liked the skill set, they knew us well. It was a kind of a low risk acquisition, if you like. And before that, in fact, a few years before that, the purchase of Brooks Braithwaite was about getting us MGA, getting us access to being an MGA. No one would give us the pen, if you like, before that. So we went and bought one. We tried to get one. The world's different from then. That was 5 years ago now, where anyone can become an MGA. Not quite anyone, but it's not as tough as it was.
And you obviously pivoted into pet insurance, during the journey. Could it be a possibility that you pivot into other lines, or are you really quite set now on this pet insurance journey?
So I love this expression, pivot. Like it's a word that many people use with me. So I use actually a slightly different word. I use the word focus. So we were doing many things, as you may remember, when we were bought by many. We had 330 communities. And actually, if you rank those communities in terms of engagement, pet insurance was the highest, and that's why we started in pet insurance. And we learned very quickly how dissatisfied people were with the existing offerings from being in that space. So the short answer to your question is, could we then go do other things? Well, we actually did. So we then, January 2018, we launched into niche travel insurance for medically impaired. And then we did small business in April of that year. And then December of that year, we shut those both down, not because they were not performing, but because the pet thing was growing out of all control and we needed to put more focus into it. There's that word again. And so could we then go back to doing other things, which is why I'm not sure I like the word pivot. Absolutely possible, but not just yet. And we've just got a lot to do in pets. There's a lot of opportunity, both in the UK and in Sweden and elsewhere. And if you saw our long list of agenda for the financial year we've just started, like you'd think, where on earth are you going to get all that done, let alone kind of breaking out into other spaces? So I'm definitely not going to say watch this space, because I haven't got anything to put in that space yet, but it's not an impossibility either.
I think, not being in small business insurance or travel insurance at the moment is probably quite wise, but there you go.
I can't claim any foresight on that, I'm afraid.
And I have to ask about kind of COVID-19 and how are you managing policyholders, because when vets are limiting visits, I mean, I took my cat to the vets last week and I had to essentially just leave it at a door and come back about 20 minutes later to pick it up.
Right. I won't ask if you're a customer, but I'll just assume the answer is yes. So firstly, we think it's incredibly important that pet parents continue to look after their pets as they would have done pre-lockdown. As an insurer of those pets, we think it's incredibly important that we continue to support those pet parents in the same way that we have done before. We transitioned to 100% work from home the day the government told us to do that. On that very first day, we dropped one call out of 800 that we took that day. It's much more straightforward for a newer business to transition to working from home because our technology is completely brand new. Everything was only ever in the cloud. We've never had server infrastructure. And so I do feel for some of the more incumbent players who have chosen for various reasons not to invest in this particular part of the technology and are really hurting now. Many of our competitors are struggling to operate call centers in lockdown. It was for us totally painless. It was not even a sidestep. It was a step forward in the same direction. And I'm delighted to say that we have worked as effectively as we have ever done. We said to all of our, we surveyed a lot of customers in that first few weeks, what they were worried about, what they were concerned about. And we went back straight away with two immediate responses to that. So the first was pet owners want to have annual checkups of their pets. They want to check they're okay. And we have said, absolutely, if you can't do that right now, it will absolutely not impact on your pet insurance at all. We're very clear about that. And we've also said that although there's no evidence that pets pass on coronavirus, and actually very limited evidence that they can even get it, we said that if that turns out not to be the case, then all of our pets will be fully insured for whatever virus they then pick up. And giving policyholders, our customers, that peace of mind, enable them to get on and enjoy their pets. I mean, rather than kind of be worried about that. There's plenty of other things to worry about, but in that small space, we can take that worry away.
And can I ask, are you seeing, a slowdown in A, claims, and B, new business at all?
So we've seen a change in claims. I don't think I would call that a slowdown. I would see that as change. So of course, pets that were having ongoing treatment continue to have ongoing treatment. We've seen a shift more to accidents and emergency treatment because that's what vets are dealing with first, and that may well have been your issue with your cat. But slowly, things are going back to a kind of a more normal state. So the Veterinary Association at the weekend said that vets can now start doing more regular treatments, and we would expect to see a kind of reversion back to where claims once were. And actually, kind of something else that we've seen is that a lot of people were picking up puppies and kittens younger in the kind of very early stages of lockdown because they knew they wouldn't be able to later on. And so we actually saw quite a big uptick in the answer to your second question in sales, but particularly focused on much younger pets than we have typically seen. And so we have seen very strong demand, partly about our competitors not really being able to service those customers right now, or any customers right now, and partly about the kind of increase in new pets, and rehoming's become a very big thing right now. As you may have seen, it's been in the newspapers, most of the rehoming centres, once they reopened, actually don't have any pets to rehome because there's just massive demand for them right now, and that's a global phenomenon, which is interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have to ask you, Stephen, I make this by some distance the largest raise by a UK insurtech. But why did you stop at $98 million when $100 million sounds much more satisfying? And I know you're averse to it. Wouldn't that then be a mega round as to the jargon that's being used in this market?
So Swifty, I love this question because I've been desperate for someone to ask me this question for a long time. Like nobody's asked this question, so full marks to you for having done that. So there are two answers to this question. First is that actually we never set out with it has to be this number. So it wasn't like $100 million or 80 million pounds or anything like that. This did not happen. We worked very hard to find the right players, and then worked with them as to what we had a sense of how much we wanted to raise. In fact, actually, we did raise a bit more than we'd originally intended to, partly about opportunities that COVID-19 are presenting to us, always presenting to us right now, and partly about kind of having more firepower for the future. And so when we actually alighted on the number on that day, the dollar sterling exchange rate did take us to exactly slap bang on $100 million. And so I thought, okay, well, this is kind of nice. This kind of has a ness to it, but it absolutely, that was not the driving force. And then only when we got to announce it, has the exchange rate changed a little, so that's why it came down. But it was definitely the amount first and the exchange rate second.
Okay, Stephen. Well, I say congratulations on the raise and good luck. Hope you spend that money wisely and stay safe in lockdown. Thank you for watching it. And as I always say, to remind you, this comes from Insurance Agent Post while you're in lockdown. If you want to register or subscribe to Post, the subscribe button and the register button is in the banner at the top. Please go ahead and do it. Until the next COVID cast, stay safe. Cheerio.